Sire, the sheriff is at the gate. We are under siege. They're going to take the castle.
Have the archers take their positions. Ready the vats of molten oil. They're not going to take our castle without a fight.
The global financial crisis is hitting Las Vegas hard. 2008, 2009, and 2010 were each record-setting years for foreclosure in the United States. 2011 is projected to eclipse them all, according to RealtyTrack. And Las Vegas is ground zero for the foreclosure crisis. 1 in every 119 homes in Las Vegas received a foreclosure filing in February 2011. That's nearly 3 times the national average, which is 1 in every 344. 80% of Las Vegas homeowners owe more on their homes than their homes are worth. Despite charges of systemic fraud and abuse, banks have resumed their campaign of massive foreclosure. Literally, millions of Americans are losing their homes. By the end of this presentation, you'll be armed with valuable information to help you decide your course of action if you are numbered among us. As the quest to divest families of their real estate holdings intensified, homeowners did anything and everything they could to keep their homes. Often, in the midst of negotiations for loan modification, homeowners received foreclosure notices from the loan servicers instead. Banks ran roughshod over homeowners and the law, until, in Florida, they struck upon an old strategy. They rediscovered 3 words that could stop foreclosure dead in its tracks.
This guy is a legend. He's a granddaddy of our industry.
I'm sitting at this dinner with Jim Finkel. He's kind of nervous because he's up for CDO of the Year for the CDO he created, Monterey. Now, the CDO, that's what we're talking about. That's the financial instrument that was central to this global credit crisis we're in.
And wait, and they gave awards for this? These guys were giving each other awards for doing that?
Well, let me just say, they were aware that there's a certain irony giving awards to the instrument that almost destroyed the world economy, and they did consider canceling this year, but it's been a really tough year. It's been really gloomy for them.
There are several layers of fraud and white-collar crime committed in this mortgage and foreclosure scheme. The lack of the promissory note is the biggest of all the problems in this chain of chicanery. Here's why. A promissory note is a financial instrument. It is in the same family as a Federal Reserve note. For example, if you copied a $100 bill and then tried to spend that copy in a store, let's say, because you lost the original, is it still money? Of course not. You would need the original financial instrument, here, a $100 Federal Reserve note, to make a legal transaction. The same is true for a promissory note. You need the original promissory note to legally complete a foreclosure. A counterfeit, or copy, of a promissory note is not a financial instrument, just like a counterfeit or copy of a $100 bill is not a financial instrument. Can you see how big of a problem this is for the banks? There is $6 trillion in real estate that fat cat bankers cannot legally prove they own. Also, it means trillions of mortgage-backed securities have no backing. I think this is the biggest financial fraud in history. This was not an accident made by someone pressing the wrong button or a few documents that weren't handled properly. It is fraud on a massive scale that took years and tens of thousands of people to pull off. Ironically, this is all playing out against a backdrop of outrageous Wall Street pay. This year the big banks will pay a record $144 billion in pay packages and compensation to their employees.
If there was a question about whether we're headed for a second housing shock, that was settled last week with news that home prices have fallen a 6th consecutive month. Values are down nearly to the levels of the Great Recession. One thing weighing on the economy is the huge number of foreclosed houses. Many are stuck on the market for a reason that you wouldn't expect. Banks can't find the ownership documents. It's bizarre, but it turns out that Wall Street cut corners when it created those mortgage-backed investments that triggered the financial collapse. Now that banks want to evict people, they're unwinding these exotic investments to find that often the legal documents behind the mortgages aren't there. Caught in a jam of their own making, some companies appear to be resorting to forgery and phony paperwork to throw people down on their luck out of their homes. In the 1930s, we had bread lines. Venture out before dawn in America today, and you'll find mortgage lines. These folks on the street aren't homeless. They slept on the sidewalk because they want to keep their homes. Facing foreclosure, they camped out in January to get in line to beg their bank for lower payments on their mortgage. So many in the country are desperate now that they have to meet in convention centers, coast to coast.
We understand people have been here for a day or two. For 2 days.
2.5.
This was Los Angeles, where 37,000 homeowners gathered. And this was Miami in February, where the worry was visible and shared by 12,000 more. The line went down the block and doubled back twice. Turns out these banks, which demand borrowers have all of their paperwork just right, these same banks have fouled up their own paperwork to a historic degree.
In my mind, this is an absolute intentional fraud.
Lynn Simoniak is fighting foreclosure, and while trying to save her house, she discovered something we did not know. Back when Wall Street was using algorithms and computers to engineer those disastrous mortgage-backed securities, it appears they didn't want old-fashioned paperwork slowing down the profits.
This was back when it was a white-hot, fevered pitch to move as many of these as possible.
When you could make a whole lot of money through securitization, and every other aspect of it could be done electronically, keystrokes. This was the only piece where somebody was supposed to actually go get documents, transfer the documents from one entity to the other. And it looks very much like they just eliminated that step altogether.
Simoniak's mortgage had been bundled with thousands of others into one of those Wall Street securities traded from investor to investor. When the bank took Simoniak to court, it first said that it had lost her documents, including the critical assignment of mortgage, which transfers ownership. But then there was a courthouse surprise.
They found all of your paperwork more than a year after they initially said that they had lost it.
Yes.
Did that seem suspicious to you?
Yes, absolutely. And what do you imagine? It fell behind the file cabinet? Where was all of this? We had it, we own it, we lost it, and then more recently, everyone is coming in saying, hey, we found it. Isn't that wonderful?
But what the bank may not have known is Lynn Simoniak is a lawyer and fraud investigator with a specialty in forged documents. She has trained FBI agents.
Did you ask for copies of those documents?
Yes.
And what did you find?
When I looked at the assignment of mortgage, and this is the assignment, a copy from my case, I looked at even the date they put in, which was 10/17/2008, was several months after they sued me for foreclosure. So what they were saying to the court was, we sued her in July of 2008, and we acquired this mortgage in October of 2008. It made absolutely no sense.
Curious, she used her legal training to go online and researched 10,000 mortgages.
Then I began to find the strange signatures.
One of the strangest signatures belonged to the bank vice president who'd signed Simoniak's newly discovered mortgage documents. The name is Linda Green, but on thousands of other mortgages, the style of Green's signature changed a lot, and even more remarkable, Simoniak found that Linda Green was vice president of 20 banks, all at the same time.
All within the same week. I mean, this is a very, very active person.
Where did all those documents come from? We went searching for the Linda Green, and we found her in rural Georgia. She told us she's never been a bank vice president. In 2003, she was a shipping clerk for auto parts. when her grandson told her about a job at a company called Docs, D-O-C-X. Docs, once housed here in Alpharetta, Georgia, was a sweatshop for forged mortgage documents.
They were sitting in a room signing their name as fast as they possibly could to any kind of nonsense document that was put in front